You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in absolutely gorgeous North Florida. And I just happen to be in North Carolina with my granddaughter. You can see this fancy dancy backdrop I have today if you're watching on Facebook. The reason I have that is I don't have my normal backdrop at home. I'm using Caroline's teaching backdrop. So all you teachers out there, kudos for managing COVID and getting back to work. Let's get those doors open, get the mask off, and let's have a good time and get these kids back to normal. I can't wait till we use the word normal again in a conversation. And I believe that Brian Lincoln may use the word normal several times in our next hour. So we'll see. Maybe that should be the challenge, Brian. Maybe they should count how many times we say normal or bring it back to what it used to be. But I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself, Brian, and tee this up for the next 50-minute conversation we're going to have.
Great. Thanks, John. Not sure we're ever going to get back to normal. There's a drink for normal.
Nice.
But we'll have a new normal at some point. So thanks for having me back on. Really appreciate it. Again, my name is Brian Lincoln for radio listeners. I'm with a nonprofit group called Northport Forward. And our mission is to inform, educate, and inspire Northport citizens in partnership with city government and similar community organizations to create a vibrant economy and stimulate community spirit while preserving the natural beauty of our city. And our city certainly does have its share and then some of natural beauty. So that's important that we understand that. I also want to take a minute to let you know that we do have an email. It's northportforward@gmail.com. And we have a website, which will be undergoing some revisions. But for right now, it's still there. It's www.northportforward.com. And be sure to hit the subscribe. We will be putting out newsletters on a regular basis in the near future. We also have a presence on Facebook, and that would be www.facebook.com//Northport Forward. So you can find us in those three places. And please feel free to reach out to us with any questions or comments on anything I talked about today or anything that's on your mind that is of Northport citizen concern.
Awesome. So let's step back a little bit. We kind of highlighted what Northport Forward was last time. Can you give an overview of what Northport Forward is and why people should really get involved, even if it's on just the listening level, and maybe shooting out some questions while we're on Facebook and the radio station?
Sure. First of all, it's a conduit between the city, the government, and the citizens of Northport. And I got to say that there is a lot of information on the city's website and the links that are there as well. So much information that it becomes a little bit overwhelming at times. I'm still trying to figure out some things about Warm Mineral Springs. And what I'm trying to do is condense it down into kind of a summary, if you will, so that citizens that don't have a lot of time to spend searching online for information that they might be interested in can go to a summary and say, oh, this is what's going on. This is why it's going on. Get the background to it. So we're trying to be informative in that way because we want to make sure that our government officials are doing what the citizens want them to do, and our citizens understand what's being done in their name for the city. And so if we can make that a little easier to discern, a little bit less time consuming to gather the pertinent information, then that's one of our goals. We also would like to see that there's accountability, and I mean that on both ends. We have government accountability, but we also need to have citizens have accountability as well. I know last time we talked about the pretty low turnout in the special election, and that probably should have been a lot higher number. given that there's a lot of concern with people about what's been done in the past. And the only way to make changes with that is to get involved now and be more involved going on into the future, so we can make sure that what we really want as citizens is implemented by the city government.
Well, I want to talk about something a little bit too, because I think when we talk about really an action-driven group like Northport Forward, it's really action in regards to what should be best for the city. And you can't do what's best for the city unless you have kind of like a both side input. And I think you're kind of looking for that. You're not trying to thumbnail one certain voice or one certain group of 10 or 15 people. You're trying to harness a city, correct?
That's right. That's right. Because, speaking personally, thinking that I understand an issue and then going and finding information and talking to different people who have some expertise in it, I've learned a lot more than I knew. And I had to unlearn some things because I found out it's not exactly as I had thought it was. So the way you get over that is to have an open conversation between both the city and the citizens. And I think that's crucial. It's very crucial to have that. If you want to move the city forward, hence the name Northport Forward, we want to go forward. We don't want to go back. We don't want to repeat mistakes. We want to do things better. And I know that the city commissioners and the employees of the city, they all want that too. It's very evident when you listen to them in the meetings that are online and so forth. They all want to do a great job. And believe me, I appreciate that more than they know. Because, you cast a vote for someone and you hope like hell that they can do the job that you think they're going to do. And it's a tough job. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And, my hats off to those commissioners that put in all that time. All of them, all 5 of those commissioners worked their tails off, and I appreciate it. And so I know that our citizens are busy. A lot of people here in Northport work, and we'll talk about a little bit about people actually leaving Northport to go to work, which we'd like to reverse, and which is kind of part of our mission statement when it comes to creating that vibrant economy that we can have that here at home and not have to drive away for it. But people don't have a lot of time. Northport Forward endeavors to get the facts out so that time can be used as efficiently as possible. But that said, I want to encourage all of our citizens to, as often as possible, either join those meetings online or in person in the chamber, and make your voices heard. If you don't make your voices heard, they're not going to know what you think. And,
right.
Getting online in some other venue and complaining about it really doesn't get anything done. So, the right place to do it is where it can make a difference.
Well, I see you kind of branched off and then came right back, but I want to bounce in to a little bit about what people are used to doing, because I think when we talk about COVID, when we talk about history, when we talk about the city commissioners, sometimes they make a decision, they bounce it back. Sometimes they readjust and do certain things. And I think that as a city as a whole, we have to look at how we now address dealing with the city, maybe on a different level than we have before, because Northport Forward is now here. It is now getting a foothold. It's starting to get some traction. And the only way that Northport Forward, according to the best estimates we have in our conversations, is the only way it can really get a really good foothold is if people actually start utilizing the system. And really, the more voice it has, the more, and I don't want to say power, but the more insight that it can have on different topics within the city. How do you think people should really, and I've really hit social media hard for the last year or so, but I believe we have to have an open dialogue about social media and how people are addressing some of the issues that are out there. One, with misinformation, And two, you can't be constructive if you're just trying to tear something apart. There has to be some really good data behind what you're doing, and really a good driving force. And that's where I see Northport Forward kind of coming in, and as it grows, getting that voice and really having some power in making some difference along the way. Can you describe what people really should maybe retrain themselves to do? Even if you're going to use your voice on social media, maybe bring it back and put it into something that's going to be targeted.
Well, I'll try. I think there's a lot of emotion in people's opinions about things, and I know for myself it's the same. I have emotions about the things I think are right or wrong, but if at all possible, we need to leave those aside and look at the facts and decide for ourselves how things should be based on some sense of logic, some sense of standards and principles. And when we come to those conclusions, they're going to make better sense than just being upset about something. So I think to start with, I think individually we have to come to the conversation with a mind that's willing to learn or unlearn, or both, things about this situation or about the topic. And once we get to that point, we can start sharing with each other, whether it's through Facebook or whether it's you go through Northport Forward email or get our newsletter and communicate to us that way, or on Facebook that through to Northport Forward, or directly to the city. That's abundantly available, and I've even found that link on their site, so it's not hard to find. Or if you want to send an email to a commissioner or all the commissioners, it's right there. It's fairly easy to do. As long as it's thoughtful and respectful and appropriate to the topic, I think that those will be accepted and responded to in an appropriate way. Now, one thing I'd like to see, and I know we're working on doing this, is Northport Forward working more as sort of a moderator between city and citizen, so that you don't have one telling the other, one way or the other. You have a moderator that says, okay, here's the issue, here are the concerns, here are the, from both sides, here are the questions, and then we can get to the potential solutions and work that out so that we have a team. Because really, without citizens and city government being on the same team, we're going to be at odds with each other. And we need to get on the same page, same team, so that we all can work towards what's best. Now, no plan is going to please every single person 100% of the time. But, for the most part, I think we can get there, get really close to that. So, I think that first of all, coming to the table for a conversation openly and honestly is step one. And wanting to get to a solution is step two. And so, if we can go at that sort of approach, I think that, sky's the limit. Because I was listening to the commercial real estate meeting this morning, and, there certainly are some challenges that Northport has to grow from an economic standpoint. But I'd say overall, there's quite a positive look at Northport as to what we can do, what's possible, what's available, what our numbers are telling us. I think we have quite the opportunity to build this city into something that is extremely stable, with a high quality of life for the people that live here. And we want to get more people working here so they're not on the road as much. They can enjoy the quality of life that Northport brings to them. So, it's going to take some work. There's no question. There's no getting around it. Everyone has to work at this, and participation is key. So, I would encourage all of Northport citizens to go to the city website and check out their commission and board's meeting schedule and see what's interesting to you. Because not everything you're going to have the time or interest in, but go onto that events board and say, okay, well, look, they're talking about Parks and Rec, and it's on whatever next Thursday at 6:30. Make the time to listen in or go to the meeting. It's one of those things where you can do it, and the city does make it available. So we've got to take that responsibility on. We can't leave it to others because that's just not going to happen if we do that. Does that get to kind of the crux of what you're saying?
Yeah, and really, it's just trying to get people to understand that there is a group of people right now within Northport Forward that really is trying to have the best interest of citizens in mind. In a town of which 80 to 90% drive away to go to work, and they drive back home, and I gotta say, I was one of those people who was driving away to go to work, whether it was driving south to Naples or driving to Orlando, because that's what I did for a living back in 2008. Even now as a realtor, I'm still driving away to go sell houses, and I see the difference in a lot of communities that have been established, and I say that with a real gracious tone. They've been here. They've had establishment. They've got some good solid roots in the ground. We're still young as a city. To me, we're just barely older than I am. So I want to say we're extremely young at that point. But we're still trying to gather ourselves as a community, and we're 70,000 strong, and we weren't 70,000 strong 20 years ago. We were laughing at 70,000 back then and saying, what if, and will it ever happen? These things all matter in a conversation that we're having, but I think simplifying things for a way for people to get information, to participate, let their voice be heard, and then know how to vote, understanding what happens when it comes time to vote. I think that's where Northport Forward may sink its teeth in a little bit more. What's your thoughts on that, Brian?
Yeah, I agree with that totally. And there's something that I guess I have been neglectful to mention. People can go to our website and sign up for a newsletter, but you can also be part of this team. We're only a handful of people on the board of Northport Forward. You want to volunteer some time to dig into an issue? Let me know. Because I need some help. I need somebody with some expertise in the different aspects of these projects, help dig out the information, to talk to different people who are involved. You don't have to be a member of an organization to make a difference. You can be a member, but if you've got some time and you want to put some effort into figuring out what's happening on a certain issue, let me know, let our organization know, send us an email, and we'll get back to you, because we're looking for partners in this effort. It's not just us, it's the citizens. We are the moderators, we are organized, and we'll be further organizing to make this happen. But it doesn't mean we're going to leave anybody out and you don't get a voice. We want partners in this as well. So if you've got some time, you've got an interest, please reach out to us. We'll get back to you. We'll let you know how you can help us. And if we can take advantage of your expertise or your just high level of interest in a topic, we will certainly do that.
Well, and it takes a group of people to make anything a success. And it takes a group of people with, and I want to say like-minded, like you said earlier, it may not be like-minded on every topic, but like-minded when it comes to making the city a better place. And I think that's the foothold that has to be established, is you guys are really about making the city a better place. everybody's just going to have to figure out where to fit in on different topics. And I know that you've been open with that dialogue. Go ahead.
Yeah, Northport Forward, we're pretty new, and one of the things that we did get done in collaboration with the Rotary clubs of Venice and Northport, April 10th, there was an event called Greening the Planet. This had originated in Ukraine, and with the Rotary there, Rotary International, and one of our members of Northport Forward, David Pinku, he reached out to them, and we organized a tree planting on April 10th over at the Ukrainian Church, Ukrainian Cultural Center, and the St. Andrew's Ukrainian Cultural Center in Northport. Let me just get it all right.
Nice.
And there was several representatives from other groups there. Because it was important that the community come together. It was a simple tree, but it meant more than that, because the community looked at each other and said, we actually do care about this planet. And I think when people get together about the issues of Northport, we're going to look each other in the eye and go, you know what? We really do care about Northport. So let's do this as best we can, and not just put it off and not just leave it to someone else to do. Let's take a step up and say, I'm going to do a little bit. I'm going to make my voice heard at least a little bit, so I can say I had something to do with the future that Northport has, which is going to be fantastic. It is. In that meeting this morning, they were talking about hitting the 100,000 mark in population, and that's not very far off. And so what we do today is preparing for that 100,000 citizens in Northport, 5 years from now, which is a little scary, but 5, 7, whatever it is, years from now, we're going to get there. This is a place people want to move to. They want to live. It does have a high quality of life. When we do make the decisions on the economic development side, where we build out that infrastructure so that businesses who want to locate or relocate, they can look at our opportunities we have here and say, yeah, that makes sense to us. You've got a workforce right there. You've got the infrastructure. You've got the space for it. We're going to move to Northport, and we're going to have our business run there. That's ideal. We need to make sure that happens. Now, there's a million details before any of that can be finished, and they have to be worked out. Thankfully, our city employees are pretty impressive, I got to say. And the studies that they've commissioned have come back and have spelled out some issues. To be honest, we've got some issues to overcome, and we've got many opportunities that we can take advantage of. But those take action, so we need to take the action. And so, citizen involvement can help that process move forward. If we wait until an election to make a decision, it's too late. We need to get involved now so that decisions can be made with confidence by the city. We can move forward with confidence towards that goal of expanding that economic impact that we can have here in Northport.
Well, and I want to talk a little bit about the election, and I'm not picking on anyone in the election, because I think sometimes you have to go backwards to move forwards on elections. And I'm not talking in people. I'm actually talking in regards to why there's an issue with the vote, to get the information out. We struggle, even on the commissioner name recognition side of things. It's tough to think that you're voting for somebody you may not even know. You just know the name, anyway. I'm hoping that you're going to try within your organization to really get a foothold on being able to be and not just a place to get information, but maybe a go-to hub for when the election is happening, where people can go and get some instant feedback, maybe a check mark system that tells them what the candidates are all about, because our candidates are not Republican or Democrat; they're neutral. And you know, I know that there's people out there that want to make them party identified, but they're really not within our structure. Are you going to do something like that within Northport Forward? Is really kind of target the really important topics, and I think that's one of them is who are our commissioners in the future.
Yeah, we are not a political organization.
Correct.
But, you know, working off of what we were just talking about, that there are things that need to be done in this city in order to make us a great city. We're a good city right now. We want to be a great city, and that takes effort. And so when this city government gets us on a track based on what citizens want, what makes sense for our future as a city, don't want those plans to be upset because of an election in a year and a half. Because I haven't been here just under 2 years, I guess, and I've already seen, and looking back at other elections and other votes, where things get started, then they get derailed, then they get restarted, then they get derailed, and then they get changed, and then they get derailed. And it's like, okay, we need the bigger plan for the city to get ourselves in a position of good growth, smart growth, if you will. And we need to stick to that plan past 2 years, past 4 years, because it doesn't happen overnight. And so what Northport Forward can do, and we haven't really talked about elections all that much and very specifically, but we can present the issues as the plans that are being developed and acted on, and how do we ensure that those plans get fulfilled. And that's when you get into who the candidates are, and do they support the plans, or are they a disruptor? And sometimes you need a disruptor if you're on the wrong path, but sometimes you need to get on board with the plan and make it happen. And so those differences will have to be discussed and put out there for a view of everyone. And at that point, you know, that's where the influence would come in from the information that we would present, and why we would present it in a certain way. What's the advantage? What's the disadvantage of what the candidate brings to the table?
Well, and I'm going to go into the plan a little bit now, because I know that you've dedicated a lot of time, and I just want to let everybody know you're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 FM. You can join us at www.kdwradio.com and listen live. And you can also join us on Facebook, whether it be through WKDW Radio on Facebook or Real Talk Radio, or Real Talk 97.5 on Facebook. We're out there. I know that you have a website, and we're going to let you tee that up in a second. But if you've got questions, you're listening out there right now and you're watching on Facebook, feel free to chime in with your questions and type them in, because if you type them in, they're more than likely going to pop up on this screen, and we're going to address the issue that you have to discuss right up front and honest. And that's going right to the source's mouth, and really checking things out that way. You can also do Alexa play WKDW 97.5 FM, and you can catch our radio show that way. With all that being said, there's some really... Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So I also wanted to let your listeners and viewers know that your shows are out there, and you can see your shows on Facebook, which I've done. I've gone back. I think I've watched probably the last 6. And wow. You've got commissioners on your show. And who do you want to hear from? I mean, I want to hear from the commissioner. I want to know what they think. And you've got them on your show. So I'd implore your listeners to get out there and look them up. It's not hard. You go to your site on Facebook, you scroll down, and there they are. Easy as it can be, because I can do it, so I know it's easy. But I would just encourage everyone to get out there and take a look at these past episodes. You'll learn a lot about the people who are running the city. Whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't really matter if you just going to learn so that you understand where they're coming from on a topic. That's crucial to having a conversation with them.
It is, and having that lead into the next conversation is the topic of Warm Mineral Springs for me. Is that's a really we've got really two hot topics that are happening right now, and we've got more than that, but the Price Boulevard roadway is a hot button for me and a lot of citizens out there, especially if you're trying to go down when there's a school bus or a trash truck, and it takes you 20 minutes to go from Toledo Blade to Price or to Sumter on Price. That can be a huge problem because we only have 2 lanes for 70,000 people on a major road in and out of our town. That road is not going to last long. We've got to start addressing that. But I think another hot topic that I know that it's really pushed your hot button really big is Warm Mineral Springs. Would you like to take a lead in and kind of expand on your thoughts or the group's thoughts on Warm Mineral Springs and why you think the city residents should get involved now to have a voice?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. So Warm Mineral Springs, it got my attention because we have this master plan for Warm Mineral Springs, and it's a pretty plan, and it comes with a $19.7 million price tag for the whole thing. And I thought to myself, well, that's a big number for a park. And being a newcomer to Northport, one of the first things that I got an earful of was how much the aquatic center cost, which was $12 million, and how much it continues to cost every year, about $600,000 a year. And most people that I talked to about this were not very happy with those decisions made. Whether it was the right one or not, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it with the money involved, but I haven't had anybody tell me there's a long-term plan in place that makes that more of a viable situation. So when I looked at a $20 million price tag for the master plan for Warm Mineral Springs, I asked myself, I was like, how does that make sense to do that? And why should Northport taxpayers have to come up with all or some of that money or most of that money when I know that Northport residents by far do not go to that park. That park is the Warm Mineral Springs itself. There are numbers out there I got from the April memorandum from Sandy Funteller, director, Jason Yarrow, and I was just wanting to figure out how many residents actually go and pay for entrance into this facility. And if you look at the numbers of individual passes and 10 visit, 30 visit annual passes for residents, it ends up being about 4,100 individual and group passes. So about 4,100 individuals. But when it says resident, I think it means Sarasota County. Because I actually went there the other week before last, and I bought a couple of day passes that I offered as door prize for the Northport Area Chamber of Commerce breakfast. And so while I was there, I spoke to the people that worked there. There was 3 of them that were working there, and I got a sense of traffic and of the condition of the buildings and the site and all that. And I think everybody knows it's in dire need of some work. The structures and the flow is just terrible, and so forth and so on. I don't think there's any doubt on that. But one of the persons there had mentioned that there's about 100 regulars, I guess called regular residents that frequent the spring. 100. Well, okay. This says there was 4,100 fiscal year 2021 as of April, which is not a lot because there's 77,000 Northport residents and only 4,100 from Sarasota County even have gone there. So, the vast majority of visitors to Warm Mineral Springs come from outside of Sarasota County. So it means that the 2% or whatever it is that of residents that participate in going to the park, it's a very low number of people for a $20 million price tag. And the $20 million price tag comes with a pretty limited return on investment because there's not a whole lot going on other than repairing what's already there in phase one. So you're not adding anything that's going to boost your revenues significantly. And then even going forward, there's 4 phases, and in the plan it's called phase 1A, 1B, 1C, and 2A. It's infrastructure, which is water and sewer. It's building renovations. The building renovations includes a cafe. So it currently has the space for one, but it doesn't operate one right now. And parking improvements. And then phase 2A is lookout tower and trails. And honestly, lookout tower and trails are, nice, but they're not gonna boost revenue. And the reason I keep going to revenue is because of that price tag, that $20 million price tag, or that $9.2 million phase one price tag. That's a big chunk of money. And for that money, what do you get back? Well, from what I've heard, what you get back is, well, it'll be prettier, so more people will go. And I don't buy that because people don't go there because it looks nice or it doesn't look nice. They go there because there's a perceived benefit to soaking in mineral water, which it works. People swear by it. I've watched, 10 or 12 videos over the last couple of weeks from years gone by, the past 10, 12, 15 years. And people are just swearing by the benefits of this mineral water, this warm mineral water. Well, great. I hope they do get the benefits. That's wonderful. But they go there whether or not there's fresh paint on the front door or there's not. So making renovations to the building might make the building last longer, but it's not going to pick up substantially anyway, the flow of customers. So I'm a little bit concerned that there's a lot of money being proposed to spend on this facility that has very little chance of making that back. That return on investment is probably not there with that type of an approach. I know that there's been in the past, I think it was 2014, there was a proposal put on the table for a vote. This was before, I think it was before the city took ownership, or it might have been right after. But yeah, it was before the city voted and the county voted. County voted yes, 5-0 yes, and the city voted 3-2 no. And this was a well thought out plan to develop that property, develop businesses around that property, around the health and wellness aspect of it, which would have added, I think it was a couple of hundred jobs in addition to boosting revenue. So, I mean, that was, and I think it still is a possibility. There's also a kind of a hybrid approach of city spending some money on maybe the infrastructure of water and sewer, because that park needs water and sewer. to just continue to do business, I think ethically, I think you need to put water and sewer in because it has some detrimental effects if you don't. But then if you reach out and private party and develop some other part of that park, there's 81 or 82 acres of park where 20 or so is the springs and the buildings, and about 60 is open land where right now I think the only thing on it is a garden, a community garden. So there's 60 acres that could be used for some other revenue-driven opportunity. Now, when you look at Warm Mineral Springs, there's a number of aspects that are interesting to me. One is the health and wellness of the springs itself, of the mineral water. Then there is the archaeological aspect of that spring and what's been found in that spring. And I believe that the artifacts that were removed are under the control of University of Miami. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's it. And then there's also the botanical aspects of that area. You've got 60 acres. I can see quite a nice botanical gardens there. Maybe you work in conjunction with a university that can build this garden, or you work with a Selby Botanical Garden type of situation or organization that can put something together that people are going to want to go to. And you go to the springs, you take a walk in the botanical gardens, and maybe there's also a museum for the archaeological side. If it's indeed the University of Miami, I'm not saying it is, but I think so. If they're interested in coming in and partnering, what an awesome opportunity. And then, maybe instead of having a cyclorama, which was popular in the 1800s, maybe we have, an IMAX theater that takes us down into the springs and it shows us where these archaeological finds were. We get the real story about the area, not just there's a hole in the ground, but what does it mean from a geological standpoint, from an archaeological standpoint? How has the plants and animal life in this area been affected over the millennia? And that's interesting. That's where young people would come to see a wall of an IMAX theater showing them what is in their backyard. Or if they're visiting from someplace else, hey, you want to talk about visiting old Florida or vintage Florida. You can't get much more vintage than 12,000 years ago. So there are opportunities here that can be taken advantage of, preserving that natural beauty, preserving the natural amenities that mineral water provides. All the while, you've got more things for people to actually come there and partake. Because I think most people that take a day pass probably don't spend 8-10 hours there. They're probably a half a day. I mean, it's hot here. Now, it looked like the busiest month is April. I don't know why it's April, but it looks like from the numbers I've seen, it is April, and they just had a record April this past one. I kind of think it's because last year in March, April, the Warm Mineral Springs was shut down. And so people are really that support that park are going back and they're supporting that park. And that's fantastic. For the next few months, the attendance might drop a little bit because of the summer months. It does get very hot. But then it'll pick back up again around December, January, and start going up. So, the question in my mind is, are we going about the funding of Warm Mineral Springs in the best way for the city, the citizens, and the park, quite frankly? And there is a scheduled commission special meeting workshop, rather, I should say, on June 4th at 9 a.m. in the city chambers. And, I would really like to see, because I'm going to be there in person at the chambers, I'd like to see 20 people show up and say, hey, I'm interested in how we're going about funding this park. Now, convince me one way or the other, but here I am, and there's an opportunity for people to speak their mind And again, it gets back to, leave your emotions at the door, come in with thoughtful, logical questions or comments, and you'll get thoughtful, logical answers. And that's what we need. We need to move this forward, and we need to do it in the smart way. Now, in addition to how we fund it, we have to look at Warm Mineral Springs and how does it affect other aspects of economic development. Now, I think I had mentioned that during this commercial real estate summit this morning, they've got these activity centers, and the Springs is Activity Center 7. And so what that encompasses is the parcels of land that are outside of the 80 acres of park. And those are essentially targeted as being health and wellness type of a focus. Now, to me, that makes perfect sense because it's right next door to this Warm Mineral Springs, which has that vibe, that history of providing that health and wellness perception, at least a perception, if not a reality. And believe me, I've seen people swear to that reality. So far be it for me to doubt that. But if you've got more of a park there than just a field and a pond and a painted, revised building with better air conditioning and, maybe a new front door because the one they have is boarded up, that's going to add to the visitation on those other businesses, which now the reason for Warm Mineral Springs being purchased by the city of Northport was originally to drive economic development. So let's let it do that. Let's develop that park in such a way that it does add to the economic development for Northport and all of Northport's citizens, not just the couple thousand that actually, and I think that's kind of high from Northport, to be honest.
Well, and I want to readjust that for a second. Because to me, there's a lot of fluff in that number. Because I've been here 22 years. So if I use myself as an average citizen of Northport, who's been here for 22 years, who loves the Springs, who's not against the Springs, who has nothing bad to say about the Springs. I've been once in 22 years because I would rather swim in a pool or go to the water. And I'm not talking about Warm Mineral Springs water. There's a lot of Europeans who understand, probably better than most Americans across the board, the value of the Springs. And I give that to them 100%. I'm not even going to say 99. I'm going to say 100%. But I'm sorry, they're not here full time, most of them. And I would dare say that I don't even think half of that number is true citizens of Northport. And I don't think there's any data that can prove yay or nay. I think they just like to keep that number tucked away. Because if you actually had that, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know that they have a means to track that exactly. Because when they buy a pass, they have to prove that they're a Sarasota County resident in order to get the resident price. And if you're not, it's $5 more if you're outside the county. So it's county numbers from the best I can tell, unless someone can tell me otherwise. And I don't see anybody writing the answer in on Facebook. But I think it's county numbers. So there's 4,105 from what I can figure out on this fiscal year 2021 paid visits report. So that's from the county. Even if that was from Northport, 4,000 out of 77,000. Yeah, that's not much. It's not much at all. And I just went through it and I did some, back of the envelope work here and said, well, what if half of them were really, one time, they went one time and a quarter of them went twice and a quarter of them went 4 times. and it ends up being about 1,700 people, so it's, if they're multiple, people go multiple times, and those people, maybe they buy the pass, but there are 10 visit passes and 30 visit passes. But if you go 8 times and you buy 8 individual passes, but you're one person, that kind of skews that number quite a bit. Now, I agree with you. Eastern European nations have an appreciation for mineral springs, and I know that searching online, because I was looking for how would I find it, and I know in Russia they refer to Warm Mineral Springs as Miracle Lake. Miracle
Yep.
Lake. So they're believers. And when I did a search where the city had said to search vintage Florida, and it didn't show up. It did not show up. I had to search for mineral springs before it would show up in a search. So we're not doing a great job of marketing, and we certainly can do a better job. And I think we need to really review whether or not it should be the city or some private enterprises that get in there and drive that revenue for the city of Northport.
And I think that we're running, believe it or not, I can't believe we chewed up about 50 minutes already. And we're sliding into the end of the show. But I want to see if we can both agree on one thing about Warm Mineral Springs. And I very rarely do I put myself out there, but I think that there are some things like you that they need to be addressed. But I don't think we have to fund everything. And I think if we do anything, let's get the buildings right. Let's get things done right. And then let's take that extra parcel of land and get it out there. And maybe somebody will run with it. With the way things are going right now in the economy, somebody is going to take 60 acres and make it a piece that we're all going to appreciate. But I'm not so sure. And I know I have a great love for our Parks and Recs department. I don't think we need a park there. I don't know what their thought is. I haven't asked them, and they're going to be on my show soon. So, if they do catch wind of this, maybe address it when it comes your turn to talk about this. Because I have a great passion for our city. I have a great passion for our Parks and Recs department. I think they do a phenomenal job. I just don't know that. And I'm looking at the pictures, and even with those pictures being like they are fantastic, I don't know anybody in this city is going to get drawn to it in mass number. And I love the fact that somebody's going to come back and say to me as an economic driver, show me how, show me numbers, show me real data, and win me over. And I think that's what you're doing with Northport. Forward is, let's get some data, let's show it, let's get it out there and win people over that way. But your thought, go ahead, and I'll let you finish up. We've got really maybe 1 minute or less.
Sure, I can be quick. So the master plan, from what I could tell, has and I don't have the appendix to it, so maybe I'm missing something here. But it doesn't really get into the revenue very much, except on page 26, where it does talk about the need for adding a groundskeeper and a docent at the cyclorama. So that's 2 people to be added. So that's more expense. And it says that basically that the expenses will be about the same as what they are now, which is about $50,000 a month. I think that needs to be extrapolated quite a bit to show what that business plan is and how it's going to maintain itself. Because right now, to say that the park is profitable is to ignore the need for $9 million. Last thing, June 4th, workshop on Warm Mineral Springs, 9:00 in the morning. Please be there.
All right, this is John Rawlings with KDW. Thanking Brian Lincoln for being part of the show. Thanks, and have a good day. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye now.